Welcome everyone to Textiles and Tea with the Handweavers Guild of America. My name is Kathy Group and I'm the advertising manager. Welcome everyone today. We want to remind you that our sponsor is the San Antonio Handweavers Guild. We appreciate their sponsorship. They've done us several now. So thank you so much, San Antonio. We do appreciate that. We like it when our guilds are supporting Textiles and Tea. As always, do your questions in the Q&A and not in the chat. I can't always see them if they're in the chat, but we can see them if they're in the Q&A. Today we have Jeanne Sisson. Jeanne is a mixed media artist working from her studio in a mountain in Northfield, Massachusetts, overlooking the sweeping Berkshire Mountains. She uses painting, printmaking, collage, calligraphy, and embroidery. She layers the textures and colors to a rich, evocative surfaces. Her inspiration flows from graceful forms in our gardens and the human figure, inviting viewers into a layered experience of memory and myth. For Jeanne, making art is both meditation and self-reflection. It's a journey to explore the interconnectedness of nature and her own inner world. Through her art, she hopes to evoke a spark of emotion or memory, offering viewers a glimpse of their own story, dreams, or timeless wonder. Hi, Jeanne.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Well, we're excited you're here.
Good.
Well, we're going to start off with the first question, which is, what is your favorite tea?
Well, I'm not much of a tea drinker, but if I'm going to, I like a nice fruity pomegranate pizzazz, iced, little seltzer in there. And
Uh-huh.
in the summertime, maybe a little vodka in there makes a lovely cocktail.
It sounds good. All right. The very first question is, what is your favorite? After that is how did you get started in fiber? Sorry, I got stuck in your tea there. I was thinking about
My tea, yeah, my fruity fizzy tea.
how did you get started in fiber?
Um, Kind of through the back door. I was painting. I was an art major in college, and a painter. And in school, senior year of college, you're always kind of tired. So I took a crafts class, and in it was a batiking section. So I played with using batik as a painting medium. And then a number of years later, probably 10 years later, I remembered how much fun, like the wax resist thing, the layering of dye and wax was. And I started approaching the idea of using batik as a painting medium rather than oil paint. Um, this was late 90s, and so there wasn't a lot of information. You actually had to go to the library and find books. There wasn't a lot of information on batik techniques, especially painting on dyes and wax rather than dipping the entire pieces of fabric. So it took some years and some manipulation, but I started figuring out ways to kind of um, get the techniques that I wanted. I was mostly doing realism, landscape, and floral kind of motif things, but in a painting kind of way. So, a 36, a 24 by 36, stuff like that. Um, and as I progressed with that, I started to feel like the surfaces that I was getting were still missing something. There were flat areas. I felt like I was missing texture. And I remember talking to somebody about this. I think I was in a two-person show. And I remember with an oil painter and me with my batik paintings. And I remember saying to him, something is missing and I'm not really sure what it is. And about a year and a half later, I had an opportunity to take a workshop with Jane Dunwald at ProChem in New Bedford, Massachusetts, and was introduced to some printmaking techniques and some layering techniques. And I got really, really excited about the potential of that. So I applied for her mastery program and I got in that next year. And I did a couple of years with Jane down in San Antonio when she was there in San Antonio. And that really changed things up because I started introducing paint and so using dyes and paints and printmaking techniques and a little bit of hand stitch. And so I progressed from there. And I'm not always taking workshops, but I've done a number of workshops with other artists here in the country, travel around a little bit, and it's added to my box of tricks.
Always learning, right?
Yeah, always learning,
Always learning.
definitely.
Well, let's look at this first image again. This is
Okay.
called Fern Girl, and this was accepted in the 2022 Small Expressions from HGA.
Yeah.
And so, what is the attraction of including the human figure in your work?
Well, that's a really great question. It's only been in the last, I want to say maybe 10 or 12 years that I've done the figure or more confidently done the figure. I remember, in college, you had to go to life drawing classes. I never
Mhm.
felt really confident about my skills there, but I started doing Sunday morning drawing classes or drawing open model drawing groups
Uh-huh.
here locally back quite a while ago. And, always on paper, but then came up with this idea of what happens if I take fabric and I draw directly onto the fabric
Mhm.
and then layer techniques on top of that. And especially with small expressions, when you think about it, when I think of small expressions, I think of something intimate. And the
Mhm.
figure really lends itself to working smaller. And there's a vulnerability about it, like I said, an intimacy about it. And this is not the only one I think I've submitted to small expressions and that's gotten in, but I'm kind of fond of her. And so the drawing part, the background, is an Inktense pencil drawing. Inktense pencils are water soluble pencils, but you can use acrylic medium, thinned acrylic medium with them to get them to be more permanent
Mhm.
on the fabric. They changed the hand of the fabric a little bit, but not enough so that you can't stitch over them. So it's an Inktense pencil drawing, and then there's a sheer layer on top of that with some chopped up fiber bits. You can see that in the background there. And then, so it's sandwiched in between a sheer, and then I stitch on top of it. And I put the figure in some kind of a world. Um, and it was odd that I chose green. Got to tell you, my work's kind of just progressed, and here you've got this green figure, kind of like the Wicked movie here, and and so I got to thinking of how can I place this or how can I make that work? So then I came up with the fern motif and put it on a quilted background. So the whole piece altogether is 11 by 14, and it is stretched around a canvas. Once it's
Mhm.
finished, it wraps around the sides.
I just
What?
love all the different layers, and they enhance each other rather than somehow diminish each other or cover each other. I mean, they do
Yeah.
cover each other, but they don't, they don't stop the image from coming through. They just make it better.
Thank you. Thanks.
I
I,
didn't
I,
realize how
I
many layers it was. I was like,
yeah.
wow,
A lot of my work sometimes takes a long time. I think
I bet.
I probably started that stitch figure, and then sometimes I'll put things down or I'll pin them up on the wall for a while and look at them and do other things. And I think all in all that piece was worked on and off for maybe 3 or 4 years. I
Oh,
tend to
really?
I tend to take sometimes I just need some time to figure out
Uh-huh.
where to go next.
Right.
For instance, putting it on that quilted background. That took a while to come up with. I'm slow.
Well, I think that's good for people to hear is that you don't have to start and finish right then and there. That maybe you need the piece to talk to you or you need to see it differently or whatever.
A
I
lot of my work is that way,
see
and I
that's
have
why I have
3 or 4 things going on at the same time. You can
that's why I have all these things going on at the same time. I knew there was a reason. Well, this next piece is called Lily, and it's another human figure. And I was just curious because your drawings could stand alone. They're just beautiful forms. And I'm wondering, how do you think it changes the drawing that you do it in fiber? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I think when I draw on paper, it doesn't feel as dynamic. It's not as tactile. There's something about stitching the contour of the figure that brings it to life. Not that you couldn't do that with drawing, but I really want to, like, when you put it on paper and you touch the paper, it just doesn't have the same feeling as when you are stitching it or putting it onto fabric and then stitching on top of it. And so I think it makes it, I think I wrote some words down because I wasn't, it's, it's contemplative. First of all, it takes a long time to do it. So you're really thoughtful about how you're doing it. And getting those contours brings the figure to life. This piece also is the underneath part. This is 2 layers as well. It's an intense pencil drawing underneath, and then and in just in grays and blacks. And then that fabric that's on top of it is a piece of organza, silk organza, that was dyed in a gray, it's probably a black dye, and then discharged. That's when you take the dye out of fabric. So I used a process where you print make on with a discharge paste on top of the silk organza. That's the lily pattern. And then wash it out. And so where those white or what looks like cream colored lines are where the dye has been taken out of the organza. And it was layered on top of the bottom piece of fabric and then all stitched and sandwiched together. And this piece is 18 by 18 inches. Yeah, there's just something, I don't know. I tell people, I know you're not supposed to touch, your people's fabric and stuff. You gotta touch it because all the little stitches, there's texture in it, and it just feels so great. I don't really mind.
Well, someone's already asking this, and I was curious too, because I think you said in the first one, but so do you have a drawing that you've done and then you transfer it or copy it onto the cloth?
It depends. I've done both. Sometimes I'll take a piece of fabric and iron it onto freezer paper. That stabilizes it. Actually, I would do that no matter what. So if the freezer paper, you iron it on, it stabilizes it so that you can draw and you can paint on it. Sometimes I'll take those pieces of stabilized fabric and bring them to the drawing class, the drawing group, and then sketch and draw. You never have enough time to do it. Well, I don't have enough time to do a finished drawing because they're 15-minute poses, 20-minute poses. At the very end, there's a half an hour pose or maybe a 45-minute. So then if I have done the work at that drawing group, I'll bring it home and then enhance it more and draw on it more. And then, then decide to create the form. Sometimes I'll even take like the pens, the water soluble pens, and make my contour lines so I can kind of follow them for the stitch. I will take a pencil drawing and put an overlay on it, especially if you're trying to get the contour right, because you do kind of have to have a plan. It's not, maybe some people could go spontaneously and just start stitching on a figure, but I'd like to have a plan as to how the figure is going to recede, all of that dimensional kind of thing. So there is a little bit of a plan, and again, sometimes I do it in the drawing group, or sometimes I have a great drawing on paper and then I do transfer it onto fabric and go from there.
Okay. You have stated that nature and the changing of seasons are very important for you. And I know where you live, you probably we're seeing your window there. It's gorgeous outside. And so this next piece, it's called Season of Change. Does that reflect for you that need or that enjoyment of the change of seasons?
Definitely so. you
I
know,
love this
I
piece.
know
That's
there's
amazing.
people probably listening that live somewhere where their seasons don't change as much as ours do in New England. I really love the change of seasons here. Um, Especially we're coming on like the best season of the year for working in the studio. From late fall until uh, mid-spring, it tends to be a more creative, productive time for me indoors and in the studio. So, and then I get a lot of inspiration from working on my gardens. So it's a constantly changing thing, and I don't get bored. um, yeah, so this piece does reflect that that opportunity. And um, what else can I say about this? This piece is
One thing I thought of, and it may not have anything to do with
okay.
this, but I kept thinking of the tree of life. That
I
stem.
love, and I have done a number. I keep coming back to stitching a tree on things. I have a few other sold pieces that have this kind of a tree connected or root connected to root. And so this definitely did come from that idea. It also was inspired by, it was made for a show called Full Circle, and which was a juried show, and thus the circle. I belong to the Art Cloth Network, and we're a group of juried artists in the United States and Canada. There's 31 of us now. And in 2020, it was going to be our 20th anniversary. So they came up with the idea of full circle being the theme. And this was the piece I submitted to this juried show. All the works were 20 by 20, which made them look really fantastic in a gallery together. And I used the idea of the wheel of uh, like the Wiccan wheel of the year. I simplified it into 4 rather than 8, and then represented each season. The stitches are couched on, this was also drawn underneath where the stitches are an Inktense pencil drawing. Again, then that's finished with a thinned acrylic medium so that it stays or lasts. And then I couched all the threads with the trees with linen threads. And then their words that are around the circle represent each quarter of the year. So, for instance, Yule for winter. I wrote down Yule for winter, Ostara for spring, Letha for summer, and Maven for fall. And then I wrote down words that make me think of each one of those quarters of the year. So they're all connected together, and each one is a descriptor or of that period, that time of year.
Yeah, someone had just asked, what are the words on that? So thank
Yeah,
you for clarifying that.
I've been looking at it. You know, you and I, we talked about this last week, and I've been looking at it. I actually got it out. It's over here in the studio, and I'm thoughtful about, I'm thinking about revisiting this and maybe stitching the words on. They don't, well, you have to really work to see them. So I don't know. I'm thoughtful about, sometimes I will go back in and rework or add something, or maybe I should just take off from this and do something else connected to the wheel of the year. I like the idea of it a lot. And the circle
And that's
of
what I was
life.
thinking is what
Yes.
is it about the circle? And I know it's a million things, but what is it for you that makes that such an important shape or image?
Well, it reminds me, most of my things, a lot of my work that has circles in it has to do with the moon. So I
Oh,
guess
okay.
it is that ever-present um, image.
Oh, way to go, Mandy.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. But again, this show, it was specifically done at the title, you know, of the show. This show was Full Circle. So there you go. It was pretty suggestive. I guess we'll start there.
But they could have said full square, but they didn't, or full
No, they didn't.
rectangle.
No.
There is
And
something about the circle. It's just so attracting, you know?
well,
People
and it
reach
fits
for it.
nicely in a square. It fits perfectly in a square.
There you go. Well, speaking of exhibits, you were the curator for Seasons of Art, which was an exhibition at the Deerfield Valley Art Association. That's in
Yeah,
Massachusetts, right?
yes.
And how did being a curator for an exhibit impact on your own work, if at all?
I'm not sure it impacts my own work, but I have to share that it's a load of fun. So the
Good.
Deerfield Valley Art Association is a group of local artists, although there are some more New England artists, I should say. And I'm on the board, so I do volunteer for them quite a lot, and I volunteer to do at least one, meaning curate at least one show a year. What's so fun about it, and sometimes challenging, is that you really don't know what you're going to have to work with until the artist. I mean, I try to get them to, it's like herding cats. I try to get them to send me JPEGs so I have an idea of what's coming. But really, on that Sunday afternoon that they deliver is when you're going, oh, okay. And then you have a couple of days to put it all together and make it work. And it's a blast when work starts talking to each other, they start speaking to each other, and you start moving things around, and you go, wow, this looks fantastic next to this. So maybe it's kind of like collage when stuff comes together. It's like, I feel like it's really artistic, curating and hanging a show.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm always quite pleased with myself when it's done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was in charge of an exhibit one time, and I know that I was literally in tears because, a week or two before the deadline, we had nothing, nothing. But by the time the show deadline came, we had like 42 pieces. But
Yeah.
I was like, don't do this to
Yeah.
me. It's
I
like, send
think
me
we're
something.
notorious. Maybe some artists are great about submitting their artwork in a timely manner, but I know personally, pressure makes diamonds, and I am often a day or two before the submission date submitting. And then going, oh, I need to write a good artist statement. So yeah, I'm one of those cats that needs to be herded. So I
Me
can't
too.
complain really.
But once you're through it, you know it's going to happen that way. So it's like, okay, I got that.
Yeah,
I got that.
yeah. I always come through.
Well, we're going to compare two works here, and it's called Autumn Leaves and Messages from the Moon. And these are, I just want to talk some about the colors. The colors are different, they're used in a different way. So, has your color use changed with time, or is it the topic or the materials that you use? How do you see that happening for you?
All of the above.
Okay.
Um, so I will say these two pieces may not reflect it, but I do know that I've gone through periods in my life, for the majority of the time, especially the roots that I came from using batik as a painting medium. I used very vibrant colors, more like the moon and the messages from the moon piece. Although the colors on the autumn leaves piece are vibrant as well, but the majority of the time my work was, I would say, louder in color. But around 2016 or 15, 16, I did start working with a mentor and learning about working with thickened dyes, painting with thickened dyes, printmaking with thickened dyes. I did some workshops with Claire Ben at the Crow Barn in Ohio. And after doing that, I found that I went through this period of grays and blacks and really subtle colors. It also was at a period of time of loss, though. My mom and my brother died within 6 weeks of each other. And looking back on that, because you obviously gave me this question to ponder, looking back on that time, I really think it was reflective of what I was going through emotionally. So things do change. And I would imagine that a lot of artists have that happen. I seem to be coming out of my darker period, and these works are newer. They're within the last year and a half, so they're a little more enlivened or tending to come out. I'm coming out of the dark a little bit. Working in those colors, though, those more subtle colors like the grays and the blacks and the is a really good challenge, because sometimes if you isolate and your color choices, then you can focus on some other issues like composition or textures, or so sometimes just isolating your palette isn't a bad idea. I think it can be a good idea, actually. If you have too much color, it might be a little too much to focus on. So in these are both small pieces. The leaf, autumn leaves is 5 by 7 inches, and the moon piece is 6 by 12.
Oh, really?
I love working that small, and well, it lends itself towards nice small stitches. I tend to use sewing threads. On the leaves, those are all sewing threads, so they're quite thin. There's nothing really chunky on those. The couched threads that are on the bottom of the moon piece are linen, so they have a little more dimension to them, a little more volume to them. But yeah, and I find that smaller pieces tend to sell a little bit better. People don't have a lot of room in their houses for really large pieces. And it also takes a very long time to hand stitch a really large piece. Not that I'm against taking a long time to do the work.
Yeah, but there's some reality in there too.
Yeah, there is. Did I answer that question? I feel like I might have just gone down a road.
No. I just wanted you to talk about your color use, and I didn't know, like, well, I guess this is kind of an obvious question, but when you have a specific theme, or do you find a different color palette, or that you use a different color palette, or that isn't really relevant?
I think, well, in the case of, so the moon piece, the background of that fabric was just a piece of, it actually was larger. There were 2 pieces that came from that specific piece of fabric, and they were monotyped and painted. And then I lay, a lot of times I'll do that. I'll do some background work on the piece, and then I lay it out and see what's there and kind of react to it there, and often take something to crop, so that, oh, this area is really interesting. Let's get rid of visually the rest of the area. And that's how that moon piece happened. I said, oh, this has a celestial look to it. What happens if I print some moons on it? And then the 2 blue moons, the quarter and the full, are a piece of silk organza that's cut out, and it's fused on and then stitched on a little bit. So I react from a piece of fabric, and then we'll sometimes add more color onto it. Yeah, so it's kind of a call and response.
I like that. I like that. In Moonlight Magic, which is the next piece we're going to look at, this is a good example of you added stitches, kind of like in the previous pieces you talked about adding stitches. And when I was looking at this, I thought about the saying that sometimes less is more. And then I thought, how do you stop yourself? I mean, how do you know not to keep adding? And as you've been talking about all the different layers that you do, I could just see me making a big mud muck, just adding and not knowing when to stop. So how do you know? Tell us the secret.
I actually, so I do audition. Means I'll take little snippets and chop them up into little bits and place them on top, along with the beads, place them on top and look at them for a while and decide Okay, I think that'll be all right. Then the trick is to take a photograph of it, because then when you knock all this stuff off, you don't remember what your plan was. And in the case of this piece, I stitched those little cross pieces on, and there were less of them, and then looked at it for quite a while and decided there that I needed a few more. So I tend to underdo it first and then add a little bit more. And the same with the beading. But photographs are key, because you think you're going to remember, and I don't. I take a lot of photographs of my work in process, and then audition, and then look at them. And I find looking at them through the iPhone helps me see them better, and I can also play and crop things a little bit more. So, and then move forward from there. So I didn't go too far on this, and I suppose you can always take them out, but it depends on what the background is, how, if it's going to show when you're picking them out. So I lucked out on this one.
People who watch the show know I bring this up all the time, but I love work that has energy and flows. And that's one of the things I love about this, that and I guess it's from art school, having it pounded into your brain about getting the viewer's eye to travel. And this is just so lovely that you just follow those stars all through the work and then come right back again. I love how this flows.
Thank
So
you.
I'd
Thanks.
love to have been a fly on the wall to watch how you did this.
Well, so the background, that again is a black sheer organza, but the background is stitched with thick, good size yarn, and it creates. You can kind of see the pattern and the texture, and it just maneuvers around. It's all in a white, and then I took, and this is, I don't know if any, well, I bet some of you guys listening know of Jambini and Jean Littlejohn. This is, they are two UK artists, really well known stitchers and mixed media stitchers. And so this is one of their techniques, that they stitch a background, and then you can take a fusible and you can paint on it. Fusible meaning it's a thin fusible, like a misty fuse, and you can paint on it and iron it onto that thickened yarn, which and it creates a background texture. So you can see the black sheer on top of those colors, takes it down a notch, kind of makes it like night. And then the sheer, I fold it over to create those folds to make it look like clouds or movement. And then stitched on top of that with the cross hatching, the beads, and then put a little border on it. The little border had to be an afterthought. And this is a problem of mine that I'm getting better about. A lot of times I'll start working on a piece and I don't go, oh, this will be a great 6x8 piece. Make sure it's big enough so you can crop it. I'll make the piece and then I go, oh, darn it. I have no idea. Like, how am I going to adhere this onto a canvas or onto another piece of fabric? So planning ahead is very helpful. I didn't plan ahead for this one. So I created a little border around the edge of it and plopped it onto a nice little canvas. And it did all right. But had I thought about it a little bit more, well, maybe the border is just fine. But I'm getting better about thinking ahead. And it's by making
You never
mistakes.
told us, we would have never known. As a matter
No,
of
you
fact,
would.
somebody's asking, is that crocheted on the border?
It's no, it's not, but it is like it is stitched in a
Okay.
way that it's like a chain stitch with a, it kind of made it up with a
Okay.
couched, with the black is couched, and then and it's a pearl cotton, the purple, that light lavender purple.
Oh, okay. Good question, Renee. Thank you. We appreciate that.
Yeah,
Um,
planning ahead, not my best suit, but I'm getting better.
well, you're just spontaneous.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yes. Well, these next images are from a series called Birds Out My Back Door. And my first question is just talk some about the theme, why you chose this theme. And I chose these two works because they're just so powerful. And I'm not sure what struck me about it, but I'm going to let you tell me.
So
Talk
these are
some about the
small.
visual
Also,
qualities of
these are
them.
small. Also, the Blue Jay is 6 by 6 inches, and I think the Cardinals is 8 inches by 6. And I love birds. I feed birds to the chagrin of my husband and the squirrels, and my dogs and the squirrels. But so there's a lot of activity in the yard, and I take loads of photographs of birds. I have way too many photographs of birds, but there's something about them that is just so lively and I don't know. I never get bored. I could just sit and drink coffee and watch the birds every morning, which I often do, and then take photos of them. So um, these are the backgrounds are on, use your words, on acid-free tissue paper. So I take acid-free tissue paper and I paint with a thin acrylic wash and make these backgrounds. Sometimes, for instance, on the Blue Jay, they're torn and collaged. The background is torn and collaged. On the other piece, that's one solid piece of tissue paper. And then I adhere them onto small canvases and paint the birds on top. Sometimes I'll use more volume, and actually, not on these, you don't see it, but I'll take tissue paper and actually make the tree limbs so they're dimensional, and then you can paint on top of them to create the idea of, you know, a shadow, and you can kind of see that. And but they're loads of fun. They're small, and they're just loads of fun to paint, and it's a good challenge too. It's a, you know,
What's the
let's
paint? What kind of
paint the
paint?
acrylic. Golden, I like golden acrylic paints.
Wow, the color's amazing.
Thank you. Well, I have lots of photographs.
Um, so your work is mostly realistic, I think, but
Yeah.
it goes back and forth from realistic to more abstract. And these two works are examples, I think, of one and the other. Now, some artists say that the more they work, the more abstract they got, or maybe the other way around. Do you do you go back and forth all the time, or has it been a journey from one to the other?
I definitely was a more realistic painter early on, um, because I love to use printmaking techniques like monotype.
Mm.
That lends itself to a more abstract or a less rigid realism. So both of these are examples of using monotype on. They're both on silk, I'm pretty sure, which is nice smooth fabric to work on. It's a Fuji silk broadcloth, so it's thick. It's not like a habotai or something like that. And again, these pieces would be ironed onto a piece of freezer paper to stabilize them, and then I can print on them. The monotype printing, so on the three birds, all that texture in the background is monotyped with acrylic medium, a matte medium. And then when you paint on top of it, the matte medium resists the paint very much like a batik technique. So like wax resist, if you're not familiar with batik, I spoke about it earlier, I probably should have talked about it. You paint wax on fabric, and then when you put dye on the fabric, the wax is going to resist the dye and keep the color of the fabric underneath. This is a very similar technique, and it creates great texture. And then there's also monotype paint on top of that in both cases. And very little stitch. The Desert Crossing one is stitched a little bit because that's and they're both stitched onto a canvas. But actually, now that I'm looking at Desert Crossing, I think that photograph is before I actually added stitch to it, because I'm not seeing any stitch on it. Oops. There is another bit. that has gone further than that. But as far as you were asking about abstraction, it's not something I've always felt comfortable with, but I am exploring combining abstraction with my more realistic things. And it's good fun. Some people are just automatically comfortable at abstraction and don't it's as if they don't even give it thought. Sometimes I think sometimes I believe I think too much. So that's a challenge to not think so much.
That's right. Well, I have to say, I'm sitting here going, I want to hang out with you in your studio because it just sounds like fun. It's like, oh, well, let's try this.
Yes.
Oh, we could do this. And with weaving, you can't always do that, right?
No,
You've
no.
got a plan. You can change it some. I'm
Yeah,
ADD enough that I never do, the same dish towel twice when it's on the loom. But
yeah,
there is something fun about let's change up and do something different. So,
yeah, yeah. A little spontaneity.
yeah,
Well, you can paint on top of your weaving.
you could. Absolutely could. I was sitting here thinking this. Now, what can I do? Sorry, easily distracted.
No, no worries.
Squirrel.
It's if you create a background and then put something on top of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, the one thing that struck me when I read your when I went on your website and your kind of introduction to who you were, it struck me that there were like maybe a sentence, maybe two, about this is what I do. But then you immediately went into how you wanted the viewer to react or see or be part of your work. And that really struck me because it was really important to you to bring the viewer in and how the viewer was participating in this. Why is that so important? Or did you realize you did that so quick in your discussion?
I think, well, all right. So let's be straight up honest, right? To begin with,
Okay.
I think all artists want some kind of, unless maybe you have thick skin, but some people might, but validation, where I think we're always looking for some kind of validation, or how does someone connect to the work? Do they feel something from it? So that, I mean, it's not that I always need validation, but you're making this work and usually by yourself. So to get it out, one, to get it out there so somebody can see it, and then two, to have somebody, even if they don't appreciate it, but if they have an opinion about it, is a very cool thing. And maybe it would touch the viewer, and not that I'm looking to transform anybody's opinion on anything, but like just for them to have a connection, some kind of connection connects to me. It's a sharing of my emotion, because you really are sharing your stuff. It's risky. I mean, I remember being young, like in college, I wasn't really confident about my work, thus probably not confident about my figure drawings. And so I was hesitant to put my work out there. It took some time for me to, and I started small, local shows, and then taking more classes, and then submitting to a national thing, and it got in, and you get better at that, and having people connect to the work does
I,
give you some
I want to
satisfaction.
talk more about this because I'm going to disagree with you. But right now, I need you to
Okay.
scoot a little to your left.
Oh, to my left.
Yeah, there you go. There. Everybody is talking about your window.
Yeah. So I have
They're
a
all
due
saying it looks like your work.
I have a due west exposure.
This
Um,
is
it,
lovely.
and the sun is actually setting up south now because of where we are. Pretty soon we're at the solstice. But yeah, I have sunset views almost 365 days a year. I have great storms. We see thunderstorms coming
Bet.
from the west. It's amazing. And but I have to tell you, a lot of times I look this way because that can be a distraction.
Well,
Yeah,
we appreciate you having this lovely sunset for us.
I'm
It's really
very
nice.
fortunate. Yeah, it's 60 miles, and like it's a 60-mile view to the other end of Massachusetts.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I was afraid it was going to
No,
go away.
all
Now,
right.
I want to go back to the other statement because you
disagree with me.
how you need feedback. It didn't feel like that at all. It didn't feel like you wanted feedback. It felt
Oh,
like you were giving to the viewer and inviting them
oh,
in and saying, "Oh, do you like this? I hope you enjoy it, and I hope it means so." It didn't feel like you were asking for anything. I was
oh,
really
thank you.
struck by,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, I'm going to go with that. Can I change my answer?
Well, I thought I was so touched by that. That really, because a lot of artists, it's so much about their work and and it's not wrong. It's not like you shouldn't talk about your work, but I just felt like you invited me in and wanted me to
Oh,
enjoy it. And
well,
I thought that was
anytime you want to come here, and I have three 4x8 tables. We have plenty of room to make a lot of mess. Anytime you
great.
want to come to Massachusetts, Kathy, we'll
Well, I feel like I should come now and bring people with me because you're the walking wounded.
yeah, I am.
Poor
I,
thing.
well, you know this because I told you last week. I broke my arm. You wanted me to make up a really fabulous story, like I saved someone in a burning building, but I did not. I broke my arm on Thanksgiving. I tripped over a drawer in my kitchen. Thank you.
I like my story of rescuing a puppy from a burning building
I
better.
like that
That's
way better too. Yeah.
well, I have to say, I mean, I admire your tenacity because we were talking before we went on the air, and she's trying to figure out how to do needlework one-handed. And it's like, you go, girl.
I have a little piece here, and I think I might be able to. Yeah, it's getting
She
better.
does not give up easily. Um, so what's next for you besides possible surgery and a cast? What's next for you?
Physical therapy in a few weeks, probably.
Yeah.
Being able to. So I will share that, it's been almost 3 weeks since this injury, and it has forced me, because I finally have been able to be down here in the studio, it's forced me to go through the piles of things that I tend to collect. I have a big space here, so I tend to collect and pile things and go, oh, I'll do that. I'll do something with that. And I've found some work like I was describing, backgrounds that have some real potential to react to and stitch on or maybe paint on again. So I already, just from being down here the last few days, have 3 pieces ready to roll to start working on it when I can actually stitch. I think I can figure out a way to do some small work will be fine. Um, and I'm always looking for the next big piece. I was working on a large stitched figure piece that is 30 inches wide by 24 inches tall with the figure this big, all with those small stitches like the earlier work that you saw. And I was getting closer to being done when I got hurt. I was going to submit it to a show. The deadline is already passed. So I'd like to work on that and finish it. And I'll find another show to submit it to, and maybe it will get in. So I'm always working on. There's always something coming.
Great. We hope you get well. There's somebody already said. Mary Holmes says, "I hope your arm heals quickly."
Yeah,
Bless her heart.
it's definitely better than it was a few weeks ago. So
Um, somebody wants to know, can you tell us about your studio? How long have you been in the studio?
I kicked my kids out. They're all in their 30s. They still go, you took our toy room. I kicked my kids out years ago. I've been in this studio for probably 15. Well, one part of it, I have another part where I have a wet space, a washer and a huge sink and storage
Nice.
space on the other side of this wall. And that was my original studio space. Then I kicked the kids out of here. I've been in here probably 15 years. I do have 3 4x8 tables. I have lots of wall space with bulletin board stuff on it. So I can pin stuff up and look at it for a year before I work on it. And sometimes I do, there's stuff that is ready to be worked on and it's probably been hanging here for me to consider for a long time. And it is a Western exposure with the slider right at the back. And it's on the bottom floor of our house. So there's 2 stories above this. It's a walkout basement. And I'm a really lucky person to have so much room to collect so much crap.
everybody's going this. Yep. We agree with that. We all understand completely. Give me a space and I can fill it. Just
Yeah,
watch me.
yeah, yeah. I
Um,
don't have enough room.
well, we have a question. It came in from another place. Somebody was saying that you were talking about that you attend workshops and you go to workshops. So what would you tell someone who's just getting started and they're starting to go to workshops? What's a good piece of advice to get the most out of any workshop, whether you were giving it or taking it or whatever?
Let go of preconceived expectations
Oh,
and
okay.
just go, embrace the materials. It's so much fun to work with other people in the same space because there's a real energy when you've got 15 or 20 or even whatever it is, people all working in the same space. So you learn a lot from that energy. I would also add that's for beginning. So just and then go home and take the tools and work them.
Mhm.
Redo the workshop. If you can do it like the next week, if you're lucky enough to do something like that's a week long or 3 days, then take all that stuff home. And if you can, within a week or two, redo everything that you just did. Because if you don't use it, you lose it. I mean, you won't lose all of it, but you do retain things if
Mhm.
you have an opportunity to really use them. And the other thing that I would say is take workshops, be careful not to take too many because sometimes you get distracted by the newfangled fun thing. This is the greatest thing. I love this thing. And you don't find a way to take that thing and incorporate it into your own work or in your own style. But that's maybe for later. If you're beginning, take some workshops and just get as much as you can out of it and go home and practice it. And you'll find a way to use it in your own language.
That's a great idea. I love that idea. Well, I can't believe it, but we got to stop for the day.
That was really fast.
I know it does go fast, doesn't
It
it?
does. I wasn't imagining that it would, but yeah, thank you. Your
Well,
questions were great. Really
oh, well, thank
fantastic.
you. Your answers were even better. I do hope you get well soon. Now, do you teach? You teach, right?
I do not, well, I haven't in a long time. I was teaching back before my mom got sick and passed away. Like I haven't been teaching and I've been asked, but as most of you who do teach know, it really takes a lot of time and energy.
It does.
And it takes away from your own work. So I'm feeling kind of selfish about that. And maybe if I did some small local workshops, that might be a way to get back into the routine of teaching. Because
Mhm.
I do, you learn a lot teaching too. I do recall that. So,
Well, I'll make the
but I'm
sacrifice
not
and
teaching now.
I'll make the sacrifice and I'll come to you and you can do a pseudo workshop and I'll come and I'll do that for you.
That would be good fun. Kathy, I'd love it.
I'm so generous. I'm so generous. Well, thank you so much for being on here today. We really do appreciate it. And I love your work. And I can just stare at it for hours. So thank you so
I'm
much for
honored.
being on.
I'm honored and blessed that you asked. Thank you so much. Yeah.
We want to thank our sponsor again today. They were the San Antonio Handweavers Guild. They've been very generous and sponsoring several episodes. Thank you so much. So other guilds out there, if you're interested in sponsoring a episode of Textiles and Tea or a conference, I know some conferences are coming up and they're thinking about using this as a way to let everybody know about them. Your business, or just you as a person, if you want to do a sponsorship, please contact us through weavespindye.org or give us a call at the office. We'll be glad to help you find a date. Um, if you want to, and we also want to thank, oh, we got Jurors Talks coming up. Sorry, distracted here. We've got Jurors Talks coming up next in January. You can see the dates, the 9th, 16th, 23rd, and 30th, and February. These are all of the exhibits from Convergence. If you were there, but you didn't get to hear the Jurors Talk or you didn't get to go, here's your chance. And we're going to have the jurors come on. They're going to talk about why they chose, what they saw in the works. It's fascinating to hear the jurors talk about these pieces. So if you're interested in signing up, please do. You can sign up at weavespindye.org. And of course, if you're a member, you'll get a discount. We thank our jurors for doing this again. It's a wonderful way for us to see some of this beautiful artwork, especially this piece right here on the screen. Way to go, Teresa. Next up, I want to thank everybody for joining or donating. This is the way that we were able to have programs throughout the year, whether it's Textiles and Tea, jury talks, all the different programs that we offer. It's through your donations and also your membership. That's what keeps our organization going and allows us to find new programs to help keep our fiber members interested and happy. That's the important thing. So thank you so much for your support. Also, just a reminder, you can go back and watch episodes that you've missed, or you want to see them again, or watch them with a friend. You can either watch them on the HGA Facebook page, or you can go to YouTube. If you go to YouTube, if you rather use YouTube rather than Facebook, sign up, because if you do, you'll get a notice that when a new episode has been uploaded. Okay. Happy holidays to everyone. We will not have Textiles and Tea for the next 2 weeks. The staff will get a much deserved rest after a very, very busy year. And we won't have Textiles and Tea for the next 2 weeks. We will be back on January the 7th. We'll have Sarah Goodman as our guest. So now's a great time and go back and watch those episodes you missed. You can do it over the next 2 weeks. If not, we'll see you in January. Thank you all so much. I do hope you have wonderful, safe, and happy holidays, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Happy tea.